What's happening, guys? Welcome back to Vertical Football. Welcome back to another episode of the Manchester United Fans Corner. I'm your host, Shego, and guys, it's Monday, and we're here to discuss Manchester United. Guys, it's international break, so don't worry. We're going to be doing back-to-back and back-to-back analysis, and today is going to mark the first of this, long period that we have without a game. And so, guys, first and foremost, we want to be talking about the player that we analyzed a few weeks ago, and that's no other person than Bruno Guimarães of Newcastle. As you guys will remember, we analyzed him. We talked about the fact that, what he brings to a game, what are his qualities, what is his profile. And then we talked about, at the end of it, what he will bring to Man United. But today, we want to talk about the fact because there have been reports about Bruno Guimarães being the primary target to Man United, United talking to his agent. So what we want to do is to look at it. How will he fit in our midfield? We're going to be looking at the midfield situation of United. How will he fit? What position? Is it the perfect replacement for Casemiro? We want to do those in-depth analysis. So guys, let's jump right into it. First and foremost, let me say this. Let me say it as clear as possible. Two major points I want to make. Number one point is the fact that I do not believe Bruno Guimarães is the perfect replacement for Casemiro at Man United. I'm going to give you my point why. But let me just make that statement. Bruno Guimarães is not the perfect replacement to replace Casemiro at Man United. Right? It doesn't even come close in terms of what Casemiro brings and what he brings. Second point is the fact that a midfield three of Bruno Fernandes, Kobbie Mainoo, and Bruno Guimarães is not a balanced midfield. And I think, let me now use this to now start the point. Many people just think about, this player is a good player, let's bring him to our team. They don't think about the fact that you have to look at the balance of your team. Every manager doesn't just buy players, he buys certain profiles to understand the balance of that team. That midfield three of Bruno Fernandes, Kobbie Mainoo, and Bruno Guimarães does not bring a balanced team. How is this possible? Number one point, to prove that point, the fact that these three people are very good on the ball. Bruno Fernandes, Kobbie Mainoo, Bruno Guimarães. But the fact is, on the ball, United will be very, very superb. But what about defensive transitions, for example? Who is going to be the person to help us on defensive transitions? United is a team that one of the major points United is struggling as a team is that when we lose the ball, our ability on the defensive transitions to run back and quickly defend and collect the ball is a challenge for us. Our midfield our defense, is already fragile on that. Right? And that's one of the reasons why Michael Carrick has come on board, understanding our weaknesses and try to make us be a low to mid block team and do the transitions forward. So if we want to progress as a team, and you now want to use a midfield of Kobbie Mainoo, Bruno Guimarães, and Bruno Fernandes, who exactly can we trust that will be that effective player to help us on the transition? That's number one point. Is we're going to be so weak on that. The second point is the fact of defensive duties, for example, right? So, for example, we know that Bruno Guimarães are intense midfielder, but Bruno Guimarães is not your kind of number 6. Even though I know I've said that Man United should not be looking for a traditional number 6, right? I've said that United should be looking for a mixture of a number 6, but someone that can also push us forward, someone that can also, has that high intensity to his game, someone that can also has good feel of the ball and can control the ball. But the fact is, we need things like interceptions. We need things like tackles. We need things like spatial awareness, zonal defending. Someone that doesn't need to be pushing forward to attack and tackle the opponent. Someone that can read the game and position himself well, to be that defensive anchor, to read the game of the opponent and make interceptions to break up play. Who is going to do that in a midfield of Bruno Fernandes, Bruno Guimarães, and Kobbie Mainoo? Who's going to do that? It's even something we are actually missing now, because when you watch United games, right? Teams find it easy to string passing into our midfield. Nobody in that midfield can easily and quickly intercept the balls and break up their play. So whoever you want to bring in must be able to do that. And if you're telling us that Bruno Guimarães is the perfect replacement for Casemiro, who then does that? Because Bruno Guimarães is front foot in his he goes for the player. He doesn't go for the spaces. He doesn't read the spaces to intercept. So these are some of the reasons, and many more will follow, why I believe it's not going to work. Another point about the fact is, you have to look for a fact that if we all agree that Bruno Fernandes is going to be our starting number 10 in the midfield 3, right? You have Kobe Mainoo going to be a starter. You also have to looking at Bruno Guimarães' qualities and Kobe Mainoo's qualities. How does it fit in? These two players, as I said, they love to have the ball at their feet. They are good on the ball, right? So the question you want to ask is, who then decides to stay back while the other one pushes forward? Or are the two of them going to push forward with Bruno Fernandes? Because there must somebody that must act as either a deep line playmaker in terms of on the ball, or even a defensive anchor. Who is going to do that? Who are we going to give? Because Kobe is good also when he pushes, right? Bruno Guimarães is amazing when he pushes. So who is going to be that person that will be like the defensive shield to the defensive line in terms of the defensive triangle on transitions, as I said earlier? Who is going to do that? So these are the issues. Another point about why the guy doesn't fit into a Casemiro replacement is United is also a team that will lose area balls, right? We lose area balls. We should be winning more area balls in the center of the park, right? The question now is, Casemiro has been helping us in terms of area ball situations, defensively and offensively, especially offensively, right? The question is, what is Bruno Guimarães' strength in area situations? Not just even in corner or free kick situations for us to score, not just that, but in terms of in the center of the pitch to win the second balls aerially, right? They play it long. You need a midfielder that can win the ball comfortably aerially. Kobe doesn't win the ball aerially. You can't also use a partner that doesn't win the ball aerially as much as you would want. So these are the questions we need to ask. Next point is the fact of defensive balance, as I said earlier. The midfield balance is very, very important. Who is taking what role and at what time, right? And at what time? So even if we decide to play in a low block, who are we going to trust to win the ball on the transition? Even if we decide to play up front, who are we going to, as I said, who's going to be the shield? So these are questions that we need to really ask ourselves. Then lastly, let me end with this. Lastly, the age of the player. For me, I think I'm so shocked that we're even considering the guy, because Bruno Guimarães, fantastic player, don't get me wrong, but he will be 29 years by November. I remember Ineos were complaining about a certain 30-year-old we brought for £60 million in person of Casemiro. And then some people will say, oh, we need experience. I get the fact that we need experience in the team, but I don't think in that midfield situation, I don't think experience is needed in that midfield situation. I just think we need an effective player. And we need to, I know I've said it before, whoever we are buying in that midfield must be a midfielder that must last 5 solid years for us at the top. So for me, I believe United's perfect midfielder in terms of age now, not profiles, which I've explained earlier, but in terms of age, must be someone that is closely approaching his peak, the peak of his career. So somebody around the age of 23, 24, almost going, or maybe highest 25, almost approaching his peak, so that if that person can use his peak at United. That's what Chelsea did with the likes of Caicedo. The person will try to adapt at the beginning, but when they reach their peak, like they can rise, when they reach their peak, they will do their peak with you as a club. You can have them for 5 years, at least 5 years, at their peak. Bruno Guimarães is 28. From what we are seeing, that guy is already at his peak, if not almost at the end of his peak. Right? We shouldn't be doing these deals. Not even as someone that should be maybe a starter for our team. So these are my few opinions on why I believe that Bruno Guimarães, as I said, is not the perfect fit. In terms of even the tackles, the rate of tackles is not up to what Casemiro will give us. The defensive shield, the anchoring as being a defensive anchor, it's not going to give us that. The area threat that I said, defensive transitions, right? Even our defensive shape to read the game and to intercept and to give us the opportunity to break up play, it doesn't give us that. Now, this does not mean that it's a bad player. It's not a bad player. But as I said, and you guys have known, we've always said on this show, it's not about how good the player is. The question is, does the player fit into the system you want to implement? Does it fit into the midfield balance that you want to have? So guys, let me have your opinion on this. This is just my short analysis on that situation, and I'm not in support of that signing to replace Casemiro. I'm not in support of it. They might bring another person to replace Casemiro and then buy Bruno Guimarães. Good and fine for them. But to replace Casemiro, he said, no, he can't do that job.